It is alleged that on the 20th of July 2020, whilst at Shep Court Lane Police Station, PC Warwick was in conversation with another police officer who is of British Indian heritage. It is alleged that during that conversation, in jest, he used a racist, offensive, inappropriate, or discriminatory word. It is alleged that on the 20th of July, when learning of an Asian male who lived to be 105 years old, PC Warwick made a comment in the following or similar terms. Maybe I should start eating curry. The above comment was racially offensive through the use of racial stereotype, inappropriate and/or discriminatory in nature. The above conduct breached the standards of professional behaviour relating to creditable conduct and equality and diversity, and taken together amounts to gross conduct. So that's the story. We are, you'll notice, lacking in significant detail here. The only thing we know is the alleged crime. Said that, of course, and a hearing for this will be held coming Wednesday from when I recorded this, Wednesday 15th to Friday 17th September 2021. So it's a hearing, so part of that will be bringing forward extra information, other evidence, and determining whether what PC Warwick here did was tantamount to gross conduct. Some of the kind of things will be discussed at that, imagine. Actually, let's call this a thought experiment. What information do we not have here that will likely come out at the hearing that will determine the result of that? The two things we need to know are: what is the relationship between PC Warwick and the other police officer, the one of British Indian heritage? And has PC Warwick done this before? But it's still a racist thing to say, obviously. Now, bearing in mind that that's the information we're missing, I'd just like us to go over to our friends at GB News, who, of course, in the art of balance, has gone with the headline, Woke Watch, is curry now offensive? Because, yeah, that's a fair and accurate summary of that complaint I just read to you. Of course it is, to them. So I'd like to see what they have different to us. Do they have a different take, I wonder? Let's see what GB News here has to say. I don't know who this host is.
Next week, a police officer from South Yorkshire will face a disciplinary panel with the power to sack him. His crime? Tampering with evidence, fabricating a confession, nothing of the kind.
They always do this, by the way, just real quick. When they want to say something's not that serious, they'll list a few things more serious than it. So, I went to prison. Why? Not because of murder, not because of rape, just for common assault. And the rhetorical trick is to go, yeah, those two other things you mentioned are much worse than that. But it's still a problem, isn't it? Like, they always do this. They want to lessen the crime to make it out to be something less than by using a much more extreme example.
PC David Warwick is facing a misconduct hearing for allegedly saying, quote, maybe I should start eating curry, when he learned of an Asian man who had lived to the age of 105. Yep. The constable is said to have made the remark whilst chatting to another officer described as being of British Indian heritage at the Shepcote Lane police station in Sheffield last summer.
Correct so far.
Of the alleged hate incident is provided by South Yorkshire Police, and it says the hearing will decide if PC Warwick used a racially offensive stereotype.
Yeah,
let's turn to Andrew Doyle for his reflections.
His name's not Andrew Doyle. That can't be true. That's a meme, that, isn't it?
On this one,
let's listen to see what Doyle has to say.
Well, the first thing to say that is absolutely perfectly clear that what he said is not racist. I mean, let's just say. I mean, sometimes there's...
No, let's be absolutely clear. It was racist. And what he might want to debate, I imagine, and what the hearing will be determined for, would be, is this racist thing he said meant to be harmful. It even says in the complaint, doesn't it? It does say, hang on, let me get it back up, hang on. It does say in jest. So it does say, it is alleged that during that conversation, in jest, he used a racist, offensive, inappropriate, blah, blah, blah term. So even the hearing thing does clarify that, yes, we are aware that the PC was making a joke. That doesn't mean it's not racist. If it was not meant to be offensive, still definitely racist. You are using a stereotype at the end of the day. You've gone, an Asian man has lived to be 105. It must be all those curries those Asians eat. That's the joke. And yes, that is racist. And it doesn't matter if you don't think it's offensive or it's not meant to be harmful, or even if that's not good enough to have anything done to the police officer, it's still racist.
There's some ambiguity of these things, isn't there? But with this particular case, I don't think anyone in their right mind would claim that he was making a racist statement. It'd be interesting if he substituted the word curry for something else of another nationality. Say, maybe I should start eating pizza if the person was Italian, or...
I mean, it's the same joke. Saying it to an Italian person is not going to be racist because Italians aren't a race, but it is still stereotypes and prejudice, isn't it? Oh, you lot eat pizza. It's still that, so it's still the same joke. The only difference is, really, the context behind it. So, you have to remember, we've had decades of Asian people in Britain being attacked, racially abused, using curry as a dog whistle. I mean, there's a scene in This Is England, isn't there? Hopefully everyone's seen This in England. But there's a whole scene where they go into a shop owned by an Asian gentleman and they trash the place. Someone does a shit on the floor, and then the main antagonist of This Is in Combo holds a machete up to the Asian shopkeeper and he says, "Clean this place up. Stinks of curry. Reeks of the shit." Are you telling me in that moment in that script that wasn't an example of it being used racially? It was used derogatory towards Asian people. It has been for decades. So when someone, a police officer mind, does say, "Must be all those curries you lot eat," yes, that is racist. And yes, it is the same if you do it to other cultures as well. If Americans did this to, "Oh, must be all the fried chicken you eat," to black people, that would also be racist. Yes.
Or anything like that. I don't think anyone would blink an eye. So it does seem to be the specific nationality that he was referring to.
No fucking
but I think
shit.
What this does do is it points to something, a broader problem in society at the moment, which is the degradation of the word racist and the way in which it just seems to be applied willy-nilly without any real thought about what it actually means. We all used to know what it meant. Racism meant hatred or prejudice against people because of their skin colour. Now, there are two reasons.
You heard that, right? Prejudice against someone against their race. I won't say skin colour because that's stupid. But race, that's what he means. It's not saying this Asian lad who lived to be 105 probably has done so because he just eats curry. Are you saying that's not prejudice? Like, it clearly is. You've defeated your own argument here because you've basically gone, it's not racism. Racism is when you're prejudiced towards something, and as you can see by what he said, it's prejudice. Never mind, eh? But they always do this.
Why that's changed. Firstly, I think social media, because if you see someone being called racist on social media, 9 times out of 10 it's not true. It's just a kind of catch-all slur, along with transphobe, homophobe, fascist, even Nazi. I mean, it is an absolute.
So why are conservatives such bitches? They've got such a victim complex. They do this all the fucking time. Why did you call me racist? All right. Why did you get called racist? Oh, I said something racist. Oh, well, maybe fucking fix that. They think the label of racist and homophobe and transphobe and all this stuff is just something people throw at them for no reason. I believe they do generally think that. And it's fucking stupid because they have racist views when they get called a racist. I don't think any Conservative could point me to a direction of any mainstream figure who's been accused of racism where they haven't actually said something racist. But once again, Conservatives always do this. They'll hold a racist view, for example, and they'll take being called racist. Well, that word doesn't mean racist anymore. Basically, to a Conservative, a racist act has to be explicit racism with like a physical consequence. Otherwise, it doesn't meet that standard. Anything less than that, than explicit, physical, aggressive racism is not racist. That's what Conservatives do genuinely think. And to be honest, they need to also, let's say a group of white lads attacked a black guy. There'll be, and this was reported in the news, there'll be Conservatives all over the comments saying, well, how do you know it was racially motivated though? You don't know that. Because unless that gang was stomping the guy's head saying, I'm doing this because you're black, I am racist, me, then unless they're saying that, then the Conservatives, it's not enough there to convince them that it was actually racist. And that's something they do always repeat. It's stupid. It's one of their biggest tactics, I think. I got called transphobic the other day. It was shocking. Like, just giving my opinions. Oh, what was your opinion? Oh, lads that are pretending to be women, they shouldn't have the same rights as women. Oh yeah, that's transphobic then, wasn't it? That's why you got called a transphobe.
It's a ridiculous wild west of linguistic territory. And that's fucking one of the reasons it's degraded the word. It's been so promiscuously applied that actually it's degraded its meaning, which is a problem because we need to be able to identify actual racists in society. We need to have a word for them so that we can call them out and racist. See them. And if you're just calling a police officer racist because something he said was vaguely associated with another nation, but clearly didn't...
Was vaguely associated with another nation. Once again, I won't go over it again, but the curry stereotype has been used derogatory for decades. The playing dumb and going, just because I mentioned curry, right? Just because I mentioned curry, unless the original story that the police officer heard was man lives to be 105, accredits this to his diet of curry. And in the police officer genuinely didn't know where this story came from, genuinely didn't know the race of the person, went, oh, so curry must be good then, I should start eating more curry then if that guy's lived to be 105. Unless it's that, then that guy has seen Asian, live long, must be curry. That is still racist. I don't care if you don't think it's offensive, that is still racist.
Have any hateful intent. It doesn't mean anything at all at this point. And I think...
it does. It means stereotyping. You've said this earlier.
There's another thing going on, isn't there, surely? We've talked about this many times before, this idea that actually the old evidential bar that you had to demonstrate that a charge as serious as calling somebody a racist could be demonstrably true. Well, that calculation changes, doesn't it? And it's been changing since the Macpherson inquiry into the dreadful murder of teenager Stephen Lawrence in London. And then we've got this notion that's been popularised and rolled out across many, many institutions now, that if you personally feel that you are the victim of whatever it might be, racism, homophobia, sexism, then the crime is wholly in the eye of the beholder, it's not something which is judged by a...
So another thing Conservatives like to do, they like to just fucking moan. And just they just point out things that exist. So in this case, isn't it bad that when we're talking about racism, we consider the feelings of the person who is offended? And the response is always, so? Yeah, that is true. That is what happens. What's wrong with that? And they'll never make an argument against it. They'll never be specific about why it's bad, and they'll never offer an alternative either. They'll never say what they should do different. Their gimmick is they just point out something that's happening in real life, and it gives their viewers a chance to sort of go, yeah, it's rubbish, isn't it? Oh yeah. I bet they mention diversity training and stuff like that at some point. And they'll say, oh, you have to go to work and you do diversity training, don't you? And you get told that some of the things you used to say can't really be said anymore because there's other people that might affect. Oh, you have to do that, don't you? You're in trouble. And the audience is going, yeah, shit that. Why? Why is it shit? Why is that a bad thing? What's the consequence of that? That's so bad. And if it is really bad, what's your alternative? And in this case, what's the alternative to when you're trying to decide if something's racist or not? If you ask the person who has been affected by it, what's the alternative of that? Once again, if it's less than explicit racism that's aggressive and physical in form, they don't want to know. They think you're lying. You're offended.
Third-party agency. If you feel it to be true, it's true.
You've hit on a couple of really important points. I think the first thing to say is to just reiterate what you said at the start there, which is that the accusation of racism is incredibly serious. It's one of the most serious things you can call someone because it has devastating consequences for people's career. So you do have to be sure that you've got evidence for it and not just throw the term around.
We have evidence for it. Presumably, the evidence of it, because remember, he's not saying that we don't think PC Warwick said this. They've already conceded that he did. Their thing is that what he said isn't racist. So, assuming that what he said is definitely true, your evidence that it's racist is the fucking quote, because the quote is racist. That's your evidence. What evidence are you looking for? What he's doing here is basically saying, just because he says he's offended doesn't mean he actually is. Just because he says it's racist doesn't mean it actually is meant to be racist. Fucking stupid. It's like if he goes over to someone eating chocolate. He goes, well, you don't like chocolate, do you? The guy's stuffing his face. He's going, I love chocolate, mate. What are you talking about? I eat it all the time. Yeah, but you don't actually like it. You just pretend to like chocolate. And you're just good at hiding the disgust whenever you eat it. Why would someone do that? Why would someone pretend that something in the workplace has actually affected them when raising it has shown multiple times that it actually doesn't result in much of a easy sailing from that point on?
So that's one thing that seems to have gone out the window. But the second point you mentioned, I think, is most important. And
earning that name, Doyle, isn't he?
There is now a prioritization of this notion of lived experience. Now, this is coming straight from the playbook of critical social justice, this ideological movement that lots...
I don't know if that's a real thing, critical social justice. I've never heard that. I'm just going to assume he's made it up. But if I'm wrong about that, that's fine.
People can detect, we've all experienced it, we know what's going on with the various unconscious bias training and equity sessions and inclusion workshops and stuff. But
he's fucking done it. That was it.
And one of the key tenets...
Look how bad it is that we have to care about other people now.
This notion of lived experience, this notion of this, if I perceive that something was intended to hurt me from a prejudicial angle, then that is the case. And this has seeped into...
Well, fucking damn it. If I chuck dog shit at you in the street, you're going to perceive that that's an attack on you. If you challenge me and I say, "Oh no, I wasn't attacking you. I was just trying to throw it to the person behind you. Like, he just kept hitting you for some reason." You are still perceiving that I actually have thrown dog shit at you. That's your perception of it. So of course, racism or being offended, whatever you want to say, is a perceptive thing. It always has been. Why is it now a problem? If I call you a dog nonce now, Mr. Doyle, a Doyle dog nonce, then that's you perceiving that as an insult. Fucking dare. That doesn't undermine the fact that, yes, it is actually an insult. And I'm not even someone who even takes the view that you have to bow down to someone who is offended. I don't really agree with that, to be honest. I don't believe the world should change for, say, one individual being offended. I don't think that's a good enough reason. Much wider scale, sure, we can talk about it. So, I'm actually not one of those people who would say that PC Warwick needs to just be thrown in the sun for what he's done. I need to know more. Really, that's my stance on this. But these guys have just taken the stand straight away. What he said, we don't think is racist, so we don't think anything should happen. We don't think there should be any consequences at all for saying racist stuff, regardless of maybe if it was persistent or if PC Warwick has done this multiple times before. They don't give a fuck.
Police practice across the board. So if you go to the government hate crime website, you can see for yourself. They define, the Crown Prosecution Service defines a hate crime as based on whether the crime was, I suppose, motivated by hatred of one of the protected characteristics. And they list 5 protected characteristics.
Yeah. So whether the hearing is meant to find out.
So, and then they add an extra element, which is the non-crime hate incident, which we've talked about before, I think, where what you've done isn't criminal, but you've caused offence to someone, and that person perceives it to be motivated by hatred for that protected characteristic. So again, and the word perception is used again and again in the documentation, which can be verified.
What's your argument against that? Why is that a bad thing?
If people don't believe me, have a look. And that, of course, is a threat to due process.
Why? How is it?
Process, because on these texts, they also refer to the victim, not the complainant. And that, again, is related to this idea that if someone thinks they're a victim, they are a victim. Of course, victim implies a judgment has already happened.
No, it doesn't. So it implies that they've taken offence to something racist that's been said. What the fuck are you talking about?
If he is found guilty, he'll lose his job. If not...
Good. If he's found guilty, he'd lose his job. What you should be saying there is, if he is being found to have been hurtful in his racism and has done it in a deliberate way, he'll lose his job. And then that's a good thing. Because if they're actually against racism, they'd be saying, oh, if he's actually racist, then yeah, good. But they don't give a shit. In their perfect world, racism shouldn't be a crime. That's what they believe. They believe that if you hold racist views and you are making other racists feel uncomfortable around you because you are constantly expressing those racist views, you should have no consequences to them. They haven't checked up on any extra detail than what we had when we started this video. They haven't heard the evidence from the hearing. They don't know what's going to fucking happen. They have determined, based off... Oh, he just said curry, didn't he? That this is not worth listening to. It's definitely not racist to them.
Then maybe it will be a non-crime hate incident. I saw Toby Young earlier speculating, would this be a non-crime hate incident on his record? Which would affect a police officer if it was on their record, of course.
Yeah, so, I saw that line as well too.
So notice how they're gone. If he's been deemed racist, that's bad, because he'll lose his job. If he hasn't been deemed racist, just this being on his record is bad. They haven't said why it's bad, because he wouldn't lose his job for that. He might have to undergo some training, or something like that. Might get a slap on the wrist. But why is acknowledging that, yes, at some point, he said something deemed racist, why is that a bad thing?
Toby Young of the Free Speech Union. And we're just going to clear up one final thing before you go, Andrew, because I know I'll get tweets about it. Process, not process.
Oh, they're just sucking each other's dicks now, I think.
Okay, there we go.
Colin.
Well, so in summary, Conservatives don't know what racism is. They don't think racism is a big deal anyway, so it shouldn't result in any kind of crime. And they don't give any arguments. That's, I guess that's today's lesson in Conservative rhetoric over at GB News.